we finally move on to the European leg of Formula 1 in the 2024 calendar. We just had one of the most exciting races of the year in Miami, and we move on to a Formula 1 classic, the Imola Grand Prix. The Imola Grand Prix has been around for a very long time with some very unforgettable moments. The track was gone for a while due to a travesty of Senna losing his life in 1994, which will always be one of the most unfortunate days in Formula 1. We also lost Roland Ratzenberger, which was another travesty on this weekend. And a very unfortunate thing that does come with this Imola Grand Prix, it just recently was the 30-year anniversary of Senna passing, but a driver that will never be forgotten in the history books and an all-time legend. To go on a brighter note, Senna did have a masterclass here in 1991 where he lapped the whole entire field with the exception of the driver that was in second place, but lapping the whole field in 6 laps is pretty ridiculous to say the least. This is also a track where Michael Schumacher got his first pole in a Ferrari. Another impressive stat for the legend Michael Schumacher, who was defended by Fernando Alonso for 12 laps straight towards the end of this Grand Prix in Imola, and Fernando finally got a race win after a very long period of time of Ferrari dominating in this era. Michael was about a whole second faster than Fernando and was not able to catch him due to a defensive masterclass and some of the best footage of Formula 1 that I've probably seen ever in my lifetime. We also got the duel of Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen, plenty of mistakes, nice right on the edge racing. It was a fun Grand Prix to watch with this mixed condition. There's plenty of moments, but the actual king of Imola is Michael Schumacher. He's one of the drivers that holds a record for 7 wins here in Imola, 12 podiums, 317 laps led, and 5 poles, which is the second most. To put it in context, no other driver has more than 3 wins or 6 podiums at Imola, so this stands to be the Michael Schumacher track. While this track is pretty hard to overtake on, it's given us some of the best battles in history and somehow provides great racing all the time. It's close, it's competitive, it's only got 1 DRS zone, but it's an instant classic every single time. Because of the layout in the country that it's in, offering this unpredictable weather, Imola is a great Grand Prix to watch and one of my personal favorite tracks to just see visually on the TV. It's definitely a track I would love to visit in the future. Looking at the track, we're going to get 63 racing laps. The traction can be tricky here and downforce levels are going to be higher than we've seen for most of the other Grand Prix. We're probably going to go out of 4 out of 5 for the downforce level, and traction is somewhere around a 3 to a 4, and depending on weather conditions. We're going to get the tire compounds of C3 to C5, going to the softest tire compounds. Last time we were here, we ended up getting a C4 to C2. We didn't end up having a race in 2023 due to the floodings, which definitely was the right choice from Formula 1. In the classy choice considering what was happening there. We saw Yuki Tsunoda fixing up the streets, which was an awesome gesture by Yuki, and that was a very unfortunate event that happened. Thankfully, right now everything is okay over there. But Imola has had quite its ups and downs. It's a track where weather is very unpredictable. It could be stupidly heavy rain or the sunniest of sunshines. And we still don't know for this race whether we're going to get a wet race, whether it's going to be sunny. It's a tricky one. It can definitely display multiple weather changes in the race, which can make it quite exciting, but tricky for the drivers. We saw that in the qualifying in 2022. Then we also saw a race go from wet to dry, and constantly it's changing. There are 19 corners on this track, and it displays a little bit of everything. You got your high speed corners in Sector 1, Sector 2's got medium speed corners, but when you mix that in with the hairpins, couple of chicanes, tricky little corners you got to gauge in low speed as well, you have to have a very well-balanced car, and the teams with the best balanced cars are going to do very well here. We're going to see a lot of upgrades, which I already covered. We're going to see Ferrari, McLaren, Aston Martin, Red Bull, Mercedes. They're all bringing upgrades. It's that type of track, with it being the first European one. But let's go over a lap in Imola. The lap starts off with the only DRS zone in our start-finish line going into turn 1 and 2. Turn 1 is barely even a corner, but it's considered a corner, so I have to say it. This is going to be the long straight going into turn 2, which is a hard braking zone, and it's really easy to get it messed up here, but this makes up a lot of your lap time. You want to try and compromise the entry to get a great exit into turns 3 and 4 to be on full throttle as fast as possible. Then you got another little straight part going into 5 and 6. This is very high speed, but another hard braking zone when you go into turns 6. Then you go into a hairpin into turns 7. It's very rare that we see overtakes there. Really only turn 2 is where we'll see the majority of overtakes. We saw a beauty of an overtake from Max in 2022 in the sprint race that at it, where he took the lead from Charles Leclerc. But continuing on after the hairpin, we go into 8 and 9, another very tricky corner, about a medium speed corner. 9 then goes into 10 and 11. This is a very hard braking zone where it goes into medium speed is what I would probably classify it as, but very hard on the front brakes. This in wet can be very hard. And this year we have a lot more different gravel zones. We have gravel runoffs from turns 9 to 11, which now if you make a mistake anywhere between that area, you will be punished very heavily. I'm always a fan of gravel zones. I think it adds a lot to the track and it makes drivers drive a little bit more cautiously, but it shows the ones that have the biggest balls to go for it to extract the most lap time. Then we go into 12 into 13. 13 is a very slight little corner, but full throttle here as much as you can, as quickly as you can. Going to 14 and 15, which is a very tight chicane. This also makes up a lot of lap time. We might see a little bit of track limits here because drivers will try to take as much of the curb as possible. We saw Leclerc bottle it in 2022, trying to catch Perez here. In the race, it's also very important so you can stay behind them close to get that DRS detection zone, which goes into 16 and 17, which these are probably the easiest corners on the track, but mistakes could happen. There's gravel runoff here as well all the time there has been. Then 18 going into 19 for your end of the lap here in Imola. A very tricky but rewarding track. In qualifying, confidence is rewarded here, even in the race as well. Tire wear shouldn't be too much of an issue here, considering it's only going to be a 1-stop. I would be very shocked if we saw a 2-stop. This pit stop timer is super long because it's a super long pit stop, and the speeds while going through the pit stop are very slow. Let's get into my predictions for Imola. The best teams here, I think it's solidified. I don't really have to go over this too much. It's going to be your Ferrari, Red Bull, and McLaren. But in what order I want to mix them up in, I think it's toss-up here. Honestly, with this type of track, seeing the upgrades that Ferrari have now brought, McLaren obviously have upgraded their big car, but we haven't seen what Red Bull has brought yet because they could be bringing a bigger upgrade package than we thought, and it could change the tide back more into their favor. Now, obviously, I'm still going to have Red Bull here as a favorite, but not by much. I'm going to have Ferrari in second, very close, and McLaren just inching up in third. It's going to be close between the three. Now, the three worst teams here, it's a toss-up. It could be Alpine, but I don't think Alpine is that bad anymore. I think after they've put down the weight limit, they're actually a decent car. I'm going to put Sauber in 10th. I think Sauber is convincingly the worst car right now. Sadly, that's the case. I wish they were doing better. But then right after that, I'm going to have to throw in Williams. They still have yet to show some pace. That's been quite convincing. Now, they do have upgrades coming here, which is good for the team, but so does every other team pretty much. So we'll have to see what happens. And this is where it gets tricky because now it's between Alpine, Haas, and RB. RB has definitely been the 6th best car. Haas is very close, so I'm going to put Alpine here just for now. I still think they're a tad bit slower than the Haas car and the RB, but there's not much riding there between them. It's a very small gap, and we could see a mix-up between those two, maybe fighting for points potentially if one of the top 5 drops out. I still think Aston Martin's got the edge, but Racing Bulls is getting a bit closer. Now let's look at the top 5 for the race. Who's finishing in the top 5? Considering we have 3 very close teams, maybe Mercedes or Aston Martin can inch up, but they're not going to be in your top 5. Unless there's DNFs. With the chances of rain and stuff, we could see DNFs, but I'm not going to make those predictions. I want to talk about solidly what we have and what I think is going to happen. Starting at number 5, I'm going to put Perez. I think Perez is going to beat Oscar, who I think has the potential to be 6th, but this has been a good track for Perez in the past. I believe he can do good here, but it's very close between the competitors, and I think the competitors have the edge over Perez currently. At P4, we're going to see Carlos here. I think Carlos has had a great season to start off. It's been a little bit on Leclerc's edge as of recently, but they're very close. The pace difference is minimal. Honestly, it's not even a tenth between the two of them, so it could be a toss-up between who's higher, who's not. I do think Carlos is going to finish 4th here. In 3rd, I think it's going to be Charles Leclerc. Even though I think the Ferrari is going to be a little bit of a better car here, I don't think they're going to have the edge over the other top two. In P2, it's going to be Max. I think Max is going to get P2 here, and we're going to see a win yet again from Lando Norris. I just have this feeling that Lando is going to execute here very well. He's done great in the past. In 2021, honestly, he should have been on the front row if it wasn't that little track limits mistake. He's been quick here. In 2022, he finished on a podium in a McLaren that definitely wasn't deserving of a podium. And I think Lando's just got that if factor right now. He's got that confidence riding off of Miami, and the car was really strong. I did say I think there's going to be some issues with the McLaren here, but I think Lando will be able to handle those and be the quickest car on track. It's a track where it's very hard to overtake. The McLaren has been now decent in straight line speed since the upgrades, and I expect a lot. But it's a toss-up between the Ferraris, Red Bull, McLaren. We know we can never count out Max. I do think we'll see another winner though. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe, and mean the world, and peace.